Welcome back to this course, and we are now looking at the last sub-module of Module 1, and this is Module 1.5, and this is where I get to present to you the full menu for this course, which is the course outline. So, the first module is what we have covered in all the preceding modules, including this one. So this is part of the free. The next module that we're looking at is understanding the concept bankability, which will be module number 2. Remember what I said, that this course has actually been curated in the bankability lens or context, and we'll get to understand what this bankability really means, because this is a very critical aspect in fundraising. If you don't get to understand this, the chances of you feeling exhausted and frustrated with fundraising are extremely very high. So we'll look at that and different nuances. What is bankability? What are the different criteria that this bankability really manifests itself into? And then we will then move to module number 3, which is the introduction to different agricultural value chain. Why are we doing that? One of the things that I must actually indicate is that depending on what you are doing in the agricultural space, there's also different kinds of monies that are actually suitable for what you're doing. If you're doing, say, horticulture, depending on the nature of cash flows and other nuances, there's certain kind of money that is actually applicable to what you're farming. You get into livestock, different kinds of livestock, depending on the nature of cash flows and other nuances, there's also different kind of monies that are suitable for what you're doing. Even if you get into supply of inputs, different ball game as well in terms of the kind of monies that you require in terms of agricultural input supply. We talk about upstream or even support to the agricultural sector, talk about agri-tech, all that. Also, there's different kind of monies which we'll actually talk about in greater detail along the way. If you are doing aggregation of agricultural produce and then you are selling to an ultimate off-taker, depending on the nature of what you're doing, again, there's certain attributes to each of these different value chains that also warrant the kind of different money or resources that you need to raise. So it's not every money, again, that is suitable for every kind of an agricultural value chain, whether you're in primary production, input supply, support services to the farming community, or you're in the upstream end. So that's the importance of this module number 3, understanding different value chains, and we have very juicy tidbits that will actually come to the fore. And who knows, we might actually just be using what you're farming as a case study. So this also will provide a platform for you to really appreciate the key nuances about what you are farming. Once we're done with module 3, we'll then move to module number 4. What are we looking at there? We're looking at the first source of funding, which is quite common, and that is loan. Remember what I said, that I had a stint working in loans in corporate finance in 2 different institutions. And so we'll look at loans as a source of capital for agripreneurs. We do understand agricultural sector has quite a number of inherent risks, and we feel there's a problem within the providers of capital, and of course, which is on the supply side, but also on the demand side. And so we will also be addressing both the demand and supply side in terms of loans. And so you actually note that this course is not just applicable to the farmers, it's also applicable to those that are in the business of financing the agricultural sector. And talking about risks, we have a course within the Panuka AgriBiz, which has about 80 different videos that are actually talking about different risks for a farming enterprise. The course is actually called Risk Fundamentals for a Farming Enterprise, talking about key risks that I personally have witnessed in my farming journey. So that's a very interesting course that you can also look at enrolling. But anyway, so we'll look at different nuances of loans as a potential source of funding. And you actually be in a position to gauge whether loans are actually good for what you are farming. Because depending on whether you are set up different, you actually find that loans are probably a no-go area for you, given other different attributes that we will talk about. And then we will then march on to look at Module 5. What are we talking about in Module 5? We're looking at impact investment. This is an emerging kind of funding that is quite pivotal in the first century. So we will define what impact investment is. We'll look at the different international benchmarks that are used to gauge what is called impact investment. And if you're really positioning yourself to tap into the impact investor space, we will certainly bring out quite a lot of nuances, even the pros and cons. But what is also interesting in that module is that we also give you an expose of the kind of value chains that are actually suitable for impact investment. And we'll also look at some of the impact matrices that are very key in the impact investment space. So look forward to sharing all those nuggets, practical nuggets in Module 5. And once we're done with Module 5, we'll then move on to look at Module 6. And this is one of the most common sources of capital for agripreneurs and other SMEs, and these are grants. So we'll look at grants as a source of capital for agripreneurs. One thing that I must actually indicate is that grants have actually become sophisticated over time. And you actually realize that the requirements for you to tick the boxes to acquire are actually becoming probably a lot more onerous than even getting what I would call a plain vanilla, loan facility. So it's not the usual 19th century kind of grant mechanisms that we're looking at. We're looking at what has been added in terms of the grant mechanism process. There's actually different kinds of grants. We'll get to talk about that in Module 6. So then we will look at Module 7. And in Module 7, we're actually dealing with the issue of preparing you now to put together different pitches. And this is where we'll look at a business plan. But the beauty is that business plan, other than just the different components that we'll look at, we'll also look at some of the additional related issues, such as pitch deck. We'll look at the business model canvas, different nuances of a business plan, which will actually take a bankability lens as well. We're looking at developing a business plan that is bankable. And one of the interesting things that we'll also look at is what is called bankable problem, because it's not every agriculture-related problem that is actually bankable in the context of different funding mechanisms. So we'll talk about what amounts to a bankable problem that can then be a basis for you to put together a proposal for different kinds of funding. So that is what we will cover in Module 7. We will then wrap up this very juicy course, I must say, with Module 8. And in Module 8, we'll basically start with creating funding alerts so that you can be getting alerts on the different kinds of funding that would have actually created for yourself after you've appreciated the different nuances of the fundraising and landscape. And then, a recap of what we would have covered in this course. So that then will be the end of this course. So the value proposition that we're bringing to the table is that this is actually born out of practice. And we have actually made sure that this course is sanitized from all manner of lullabies and motivational talk. So be ready with just the hard knuckles, hard punches about fundraising options. And I promise to really deliver the best from my over 20 years of experience in different institutions and of course in my own enterprise in relation to fundraising for smallholder and emerging farmers and any other SME out there. And one other issue is that there's quite a lot of other funding courses out there. But what we can promise you is that, especially for this has been made for you in your own context, so it's easier for you to understand. And much as obviously there will be a bit of technical jargon here and there, but I'm here to make sure that I demystify all that technical jargon. So be rest assured, whether you're a nurse, you're a plumber, any other profession, we promise to make sure that you are at home in this course. So this has been yours truly, Bruno Mwemba, aka Mr. Panuka, with this introductory module, and I hope to see you in module 2. Bye-bye.